Well, I don't know what to make of these tier shifts. So yeah, today's October 1st. And the tier shifts for NU weren't very, like, massive in terms of, like, number of Pokemon we gained and lost. But look at what we got. Like, huh? So, obviously yesterday, I did a stream where I looked at some of the lower ranked stuff on RU's VR, and just kind of talked about, you know, alright, if these Pokemon were to drop, how cool could they be? What could they do, maybe? And I do believe that I explicitly pointed these two out as Pokemon that I had heard a lot of rumblings about them probably dropping. And yet, despite the warnings, despite plenty of knowledge ahead of time, despite ESCAVALIER's usage in August being, you know, almost enough to have it drop when we had the September tier shifts, I still didn't think these Pokemon would drop. I guess neither of these are what you would call a noob bait Pokemon. Something like Comfy, where you look at it and then you go, oh yes, this has a lot of things that at least seem cool, so maybe an inexperienced player would think it's really good. I don't think Snorlax and ESCAVALIER are like that. But it's like, it's still hard to wrap my head around them being NU. Snorlax especially, because this is a Pokemon that, you know, used to be, for how many gens? Like 3? It was running the shit out of OU. At least for 2 gens it was. I don't know exactly how great it was in 3. And he had ESCAVALIER, which at least has been like an RU/UU relevant Pokemon ever since its inception. And with the power creep going down, with UU losing out on 2 steel types that were like at the top of their tier, I would have thought this would have, if anything, rose, because it used to be really good in UU. But no. Instead, we got it. Now, I haven't played any yet with the new Pokemon, right? The tier's been out for what, maybe 6 hours? With these two, I don't know if the ladder's updated yet. I know the team builder isn't. You can see things like Alchemy are still showing up as NU, Avalugg. And I'm gonna go off on a tangent real quick. NU only dropped 16 Pokemon, 2 of which were PUBL. I'm really surprised that we didn't drop more. I feel like we really shoulda. Anyhow. Snorlax is, I think, what people are probably considering the more problematic Pokemon, and I think it's just the stats, dude. Like, what is this bulk? Say you run like... Oh my lord, please. I just want to press this. If you try to go and max out your special bulk, nothing is touching this. Like, Snorlax can blanket check things, probably even like Specs for Bombi, I imagine. I imagine you even can take a Specs Draco from Duraludon pretty reasonably. And Curselax is looking like a huge issue, right? So I imagine you do what? Oh, that's not how you spell curse. Probably Darkest Lariat, and then Rest. Something like this, right? So you've got Rest so that Pokemon like Jellicent don't put you on a timer. You got Darkest Lariat to hit Ghost types, obviously, and also to beat Kofa in the 1v1, even if it's Iron Defense. At least on paper, this mon seems ridiculous. I don't really know entirely what the tier has to deal with it. From a glance, it's like what Girder with bulk up, you just set up alongside it. You can knock its item as well, so it's easier to KO. Something like Will-O-Wisp Jellicent could maybe make more of a return. A lot of them have been running Toxic recently. But maybe you run Will-O-Wisp Taunt, and then just hope that you can prevent this from getting off the rest and then slowly whittle it down. Do we see like a return of Persian to relevancy? Alolan Persian? Probably not. I guess it depends on, one, if ESCAVALIER were to even remain. Because I think that would partly dictate the viability of the fairy types, right? ESCAVALIER is huge for handling those. Back on Lax. I think this is probably a set that people would be most up in arms over. Because it's just so hard to KO, because, like, again, bulk. Now, I do think it's at least nice to have something that blanket checks some annoying stuff, like Ninetales. like hell, Frostmoth, even like Rabombi, Vanillix, just a lot of the special attackers in general. I do think it does offer some nice things for the tier, but I do understand the worries about Snorlax. It's so bulky, and at least on paper, I can see why it would be broken, or considered broken. I do want to at least playtest with it a little bit, see like, in practice how problematic it is. I kind of wonder if like, Curse-Lax on Aurora Veil would be any good. I don't know if it would, because I feel like this is something that you would want more on like, a team that doesn't want to just keep up super hard offensive pressure 24/7. You know, like your balanced builds, your bulky offense, maybe even your stall, you see Curse-Lax there. I also wonder if like Choice Band would be any good. Because this Snorlax is not weak. 110 base attack, it's got pretty good coverage too between moves like Body Slam, Darkest Lariat, Earthquake, Fire Punch. It's got a good amount of options. Even Seed Bomb if you want to hit Rhydon for even more damage. So I think this one is definitely the one that most people see drop and there's like, no, get rid of it. Escavalier on the other hand, I have seen plenty of people still like be worried about it too. Similarly, look at Escavalier's a really good Pokemon just based on base stats alone. But I think it also offers a lot more good for the tier, a la Snorlax. Again, like if you try to max out this thing's special bulk, 7105 is really good. And so this thing could probably handle the fairy types really reliably. There's no probably, it just would. But again, the issue ends up being you have this bulky Pokemon, which you also can't crit, by the way. I saw someone mention this set. I don't know if these were the moves they had in mind, but they mentioned in your Discord going Swords Dance plus Rest. I think that is a pretty cool idea. Again, preventing like things like Will-O-Wisp Rotom, Will-O-Wisp Jellicent from trying to cripple you and just beat you that way. Escavalier's attack even uninvested. Like, look at this. This attack stat, some Pokemon have this, like, maxing out their EVs in attack. This is, I'm pretty sure this is base 90s with a positive nature. That sounds right, yeah. Because 317 would be 95, so 306 is 90. Choice Band Escavalier also sounds like incredibly scary. Obviously, it's a super slow Pokemon, and so if you do run like Choice Band, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like the tier mostly favors faster wall breakers. And I also feel like Escavalier probably would get more run out of trying to utilize defensive utility, right? In-use quality of steel types isn't very high at the moment. You've got Togedemaru, which isn't really seen that much anymore. You've got Ferroseed, which, you know, literally just dropped to PU and doesn't really do what you want out of a steel type. Doesn't resist ice is the big one. Still resists fairy, but not resisting ice as a steel type sucks. At least in this tier, I would say. You've got Sylvalia's Steel, which is, you know, easy to wear down because it can't hold an item. Escavalier, it gets to run rest, potentially. It can hold lefties. Maybe even to see Sword Sense plus Protect. Just, again, means of trying to keep Leftovers recovery going strong. Magneton, you're not running that anymore as a defensive steel. Alolan Sandslash, I don't think it's too bad. It's mostly just an issue of... It's not a Duraludon check, because you just get body pressed down. And like Gallarfisk, another Pokemon that's like, it's not bad, but I do struggle justifying Gallarfisk a lot on teams right now because it doesn't appreciate Mudsdale being as good as it is. I feel like it's also like Ground Steel. We've seen Steelix obviously be super good despite its typing having shortcomings with respect to functioning as a steel type. Steelix is also just significantly bulkier on the physical end, which means that you get to blanket check more stuff without investing in physical bulk at all. Gallarfisk doesn't have that luxury of having like 230 base defense. Steelix could invest fully in special bulk and still be like, alright, I'll still handle all these physical attackers and not really care. Gallarfisk, not so much. And of course, the only other steel type we have that's tiered in you is Duraludon, and I'm not willing to consider this a steel type because it doesn't do anything defensively a steel type would do. Not even anything defensively really that a dragon type would do beyond like the grass resistance. The water resistance, kinda, you can sort of switch into Scalds, I would say. But I do think ESCAVALIER is really cool, at least for its defensive purposes. I do want to try out some stuff with it. Again, I really like Swords Dance as like an idea, and I think Iron Head plus knockoff is really good coverage, and then like Rest, Protect, maybe even run another attack like Close Combat could be okay. Because obviously these two moves, you know, they mean you struggle a little bit more with getting past, say, like a Sylvalis Steel. Maybe just want to CC that and get rid of it. I do think ESCAVALIER also likes the fact that, in terms of fire types, yes, we got 2, but beyond that, again, what's this thing I think is only weak to fire, right? Let me join a random room. Let's join Mafia and DS. No wait, no. DS? DT? Yeah, DSS. Fuck, how do I spell ESCAVALIER? Oh, it's DT ESCAVALIER. DT. That's not how you spell that. Oh, that's not even. I'm so sorry. Average just looks like only weak to fire. If I'm forgetting another type, it's weak to, my bad. But when we look at fire type coverage that's run in Inu, there's not a lot of it. What comes to mind as fire type coverage is like what Rhydon with Heat Crash, and obviously Rhydon is not as common a Pokemon anymore, at least compared to previous iterations of Inu. You've got like Sylvalis Steel's Flamethrower, which I think that is a very valid coverage move, because Sylvalis Steel, again, non-CC ESCAVALIER's checked by it. Weezing as well. I think Flamethrower Weezing maybe could see usage more than it already is. We've seen in Snake offensive Weezing, or at least like Weezing with multiple attacking moves rise up more. Like Sludge Bomb, Flamethrower, Shadow Ball, last move is a pretty standard moveset right now in Weezings. And as it stands, Weezing's also a pretty decent ESCAVALIER check, because it's pretty bulky. So maybe we see more Flamethrower Weezing even just on defensive sets. But like, no hidden power fire this generation really sucks, just in terms of like trying to lure ESCAVALIER in to force damage onto it with a move like HP fire. Something like Rabombi would love to have that right now. I do think it is very interesting though, how ESCAVALIER dropping could potentially, if it doesn't get banned from a council vote, I could see ESCAVALIER at least dampening those super annoying Rabombi plus Gallade cores that you see. Because you're not KOing this with a Gallade. Like, again, uninvested, its physical defense is still really good. Gallade's strong as hell, but you aren't dropping this. You might do over 50 if you're Life Orb Gallade, you know, close combat, but you're not OHKOing anything. I really hope that ESCAVALIER ends up being, like, okay to keep around in the tier, because I think what it can offer to us defensively, just as a steel type, as like a sort of tank of sorts, you know, a very bulky Pokemon that still offers a good amount of attacking power, could be really cool. And also, again, I just think this is a really cool idea for a set. Shoutouts to the boy Avijaz himself. Now, I guess I could cover the 2 other irrelevant changes that happened. Decidueye actually rose to RU. I think they ranked it at like, I don't know if they did the VR update, but I think I saw people talk about how like it's a mid-B rank Pokemon right now for them. Probably just because it beats water types or something, I don't know. But I haven't really felt Decidueye was very good in Inu at all this month. Spec sets fell off really hard because it wasn't that it was necessarily a bad wall breaker, but it was more a matter of like, why would I use this when there are better wall breakers? And then I felt Defog was fine enough, but so many Pokemon just run heavy duty boots now that it's like, do you really need to run a Defogger? You know, Scarf I always thought was a pretty not great set. I never could really get behind it. I thought Swords Dance was pretty decent, mostly because Alolan Persian fell out of favor. And I had an HO team with SD Decidueye on it, so I'm a little bit saddened by its leaving. I don't really... The weird thing is, though, again, because Decidueye just fell out of favor so much, I don't see really anything picking up in response to that. I mean, does that make something like Sneasel or Ninetales worse because now they have one less Pokemon they take advantage of? So I mean, like, hey, say you had like a U-turn Wishy-Washy getting in a Sneasel versus Decidueye. Well, now that sequence doesn't exist. You know, say you had Ninetales trying to pivot in on a Decidueye's Leaf Storm or Defog. Well, now that line doesn't exist. Those are really the only cases I can think of in terms of a Pokemon benefiting from Decidueye leaving. And what, I guess water types get a little bit better now because there's one less breaker that threatens them. I think teams get a little bit uglier now because there's one less grass type, and aesthetics do matter when team building. I won't let you tell me otherwise. But beyond some, you know, meme points and a couple sets that Decidueye could do pretty okay, but they weren't, you know, taking over the meta, I don't really see its impact being felt very hard. And we also actually lost Tangela, which also is to RU. To my knowledge, this is a very good, like, blanket physical wall. I think maybe we could have experimented with it more in NU, personally. If anything, as a check to, like, offensive Mudsdale variants, CB, just offensive rocks, etc. But honestly, I haven't seen a Tangela since the first DLC dropped, if I'm remembering correctly. And that was back when we had, like, Golurk as well. Which, hey, this is a good check to that, too. But I think this is even more so than Decidueye. I view Tangela leaving as very inconsequential. No one really used it at all. On paper, it probably did something okay. Again, like handling Mudsdale. Kingler? You walled Kingler. I don't think any Kingler runs X's right now. But like beyond that, you could fill that void. I do think it's kind of interesting that it rose. Because it rose straight up from PU too. So they actually end up suffering from that, I think, probably more than we do. I don't know if Tangela was a good Pokemon in PU. But I know for damn sure this thing wasn't getting ranked. We did the VR update. I don't think it was ever ranked originally when it came down. Wait, no, it was in B. You know what? Nah, it probably would have been ranked if we kept it. I think someone would have probably made an argument for C rank. And I probably would have been fine with conceding that. I mean, hey, Tangela maybe could even soft-check Snorlax. You got Sleep Powder, you got Knockoff, Leech Seed. You know, you could probably, like, bother this enough. I think that's going to be it in terms of the drops. Expect the NE Council to, like, vote on both of these, because I think these are both Pokemon that are going to be very controversial. They already are very controversial. We already are seeing a whole bunch of people talk about how they want Snorlax banned because it's OP. ESCAVALIER, I think, to a lesser extent, is picking up some traction in that way too. Much more Snorlax, and I do think it's just because Curse sets, very bulky, even before the boosts, kind of invalidates a lot of Pokemon. I've been hearing as an argument a lot. Special attackers just can't deal with this. ESCAVALIER I really haven't heard as much on. I have heard at least a couple people say that they want to vote on it, which doesn't necessarily mean they want to ban it. But obviously, it's a Pokemon that will pick up traction just because it's a very viable Steel type. So if it stays, I think this will be one of the most defining Pokemon in the tier. If Snorlax stays, it'll like literally be S rank. In terms of my thoughts on either of these, I really don't have any yet. I think I briefly mentioned that, but I want to at least play out the tier a little bit with these in it before I make any decision. I think ESCAVALIER might be fine to keep around, and Snorlax I'm a little bit more hesitant about, but I could see keeping it as well. It just kind of depends on if in these few days before any sort of vote happens, what like consistent ways, if any, do people find to help deal with like Snorlax and to a lesser extent ESCAVALIER as well? Because I'd like to believe the meta maybe can adapt a little bit to just an increase in power level. But at the end of the day, I don't know. A funny interaction I'm noticing now, at least with this Snorlax set. SD ESCAVALIER probably beats Curselax. Are you faster than it? I forget. Why is ESCAVALIER slower than Snorlax? Anyhow, you'd probably run speed for that anyway. But yeah, maybe you run this ESCAVALIER to beat up Snorlax and just pray it doesn't run Heat Crash. You know, guys, that's gonna be it for me. This tier shift is Again, much smaller. Honestly, I thought it would have been a little bit larger. I've noticed as the like waves of DLC Pokemon have come down, it's been fewer and fewer Pokemon getting dropped off at each tier. Again, PU only getting 16 drops, 2 of which were to PUBL, so it only ends up being 14. NU also, I remember thinking we didn't get that many. So I felt like maybe there'd be some more shitter mons from RU that we'd get, but apparently not. You know, guys, I'm excited to at least play this meta. I want to use Escavalier. I want to put it into the reign of Rabombi. Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, peace.